All right, in this video, we're going to be looking at getting the paddle to move because we don't really have a game yet. And we'll also start looking at the score. So getting the paddle to move is actually going to be pretty simple. And this goes back to our paint pot where we were able to put our finger on the screen and just sort of drag, right, a line, create a line by moving our finger. Same idea here. We're just going to be able to move our finger back and forth. A little bit later on, we might want to play with the accelerometer, especially if you've got a phone that's got the accelerometer in it, and then be able to move your phone left and right, and then be able to get the paddle to move that way, which would be kind of a cool thing. All right, so our paddle sprite is here, right? And so we want to basically, when you drag it, what's going to happen, right? And so that's this block here. So we're just going to grab it and put it in. I'm just going to move these things around so we have a bit more room. I won't collapse them. I think we've just put them there. Okay, bring this up here, front and center. All right, so what's going to happen when we drag the paddle? Well, all we want to do is to move it, right? Now, we don't want to move it up and down, okay? We just want to move it left and right. So we have to deal with that, but pretty simple. Back to the paddle sprite, we're just going to set its, basically its move to, or call it to move to. Here it is. Okay, so we're going to call this move to property, or procedure, I guess. And so what we want is basically the, let's do the Y value first, because we don't want it moving up and down. So we just want to keep the Y position. So I'm just going to go back to paddle sprite, and we're going to set or move the Y to nothing. So we're just going to keep that. I guess you could do with the height. Let me just think here. Also the X. The X probably, and Y is probably better to see. Makes more sense. We're going to set the paddle sprite to its Y value. So whatever its Y value was before, we're going to keep it. Now the new one, we're going to move it to now the current X. So remember before we had to draw the line in between, the previous and the current. Okay, this one we just want to move it to wherever our finger is. So it knows where it was. It will move it to where our finger is now, and it does that really, really quickly. So you get this smooth movement. That's all we have to do. So you might want to just check your game now. You should be able to put your finger on your paddle, okay, and then move it left or right. So before we get started with the score, I want to deal with the reset button because we haven't got that functionality working, and it's going to be pretty simple here. So I'm just going to click on the reset button. The reset button is just going to stop the game basically, okay, stop the ball movement, and put the ball back at the top, okay? So when we click on that reset button, okay, I'm just going to grab that in. What are we going to do? Well, we've already got this call to move it to the middle, so we're going to do that again. So I'm just going to take this, Control-C, Control-V, and bring that in, okay? So it's going to set it back, okay, to where it, the top center. And what we're also going to do is we're going to copy this one too, okay, about the ball enabled. Now the only difference is, instead of it being true, we're going to set that to false, okay? So then that way, that reset button will nicely stop the game, okay, by turning the ball off, basically, its movement, and then it will also reset its position there. Now to do score, we've already kind of done this. We need to have score sort of being used by a variety of functions here, okay? When we click the start button, we want to make sure it's 0. Maybe the reset button, we want to set it to 0. When you hit the bottom, okay, we haven't coded that in there, but when it hits the bottom, it changes the score. So the score needs to be you're right, a global variable. So let's create that global variable. So variables, initialize global variable to, and so we'll call this here score. Okay, and we'll set that. I'll just grab a number one here. Oh, there's a 0 already. Let's just copy and paste, and I'll set that to 0 to start with. Okay, so that gets our variable there that we'll be able to use and then also display on our screen. Now, because we're going to be using score, we're going to be updating the score in a variety of spots, what we want to do is, like we did before, create a procedure so that we're not rewriting the code, multiple times. So what I'm going to do here is actually grab the procedure block. Okay, so we're going to make a procedure and say what's going to do here, and we give it a name. So what should we call it? Well, let's call it change and show score. Okay, long name. So it's going to change and show the score. Now this one's going to be a little bit different. We're going to actually put an input into it. So there's basically going to be a parameter we're going to create that when the functions, when this procedure is called by this other function, it's going to actually have to input a number into it. And so you click on the little gear here, you can do an input, and oops, how does this work again? Just a second here. I want to put this input. Okay, there we go. Okay, so I have to throw it in there. I didn't see the two different colors. So we'll call this, I guess, the new score. There we go. Okay. Sorry. So again, just be fooling around there. You have to grab this and put it into here. You could have more than one input. So I guess that's what that's trying to show. Sorry, I didn't quite figure that out there. So what do we want to do? Well, basically we want to get the old score and update that to the new score. So I'm going to grab our variable here. So I think we can find our variables here now. So we're going to set what? Set our global score to our new score. Okay, so we're going to set that global score to our new score. Now what we want to also do is change the score label. Now this one here, I'm going to actually make a bit of a change. I'm going to go back to the designer and I'm going to explain what I'm going to do here. I'm actually going to get rid of this score one, and we're going to use the idea of concatenation. We saw that in Python. Okay, and I think this is a good place to show it. So instead of having two separate labels here, one with the text, one with the number, which is fine, what we'll do though is we'll just concatenate it. So we'll join the score text with the score number there. So what I'm going to do is just quickly get rid of this one. Okay, and I think the score label is set to automatic. It should fix itself in terms of its size. All right, so let's just go back to the blocks. And so in here, we want to set the label. So the score label, set the score label to, and the text part. So set score label text to, and then what we're going to do is we're going to join. Now, I think it's into the text here. Yep, there's join. So I'm going to grab that. So what we're going to do is we're going to join some text. And so this text, okay, with our quotations, we know those that represents text. So I'm just going to type in score here, if I can. There we go. Score with a colon. Put a couple extra spaces in there just in case. And what we're going to do is that score is going to have the new score. So it's going to get the global score. Oh yeah, because it's going to get sorry, that's updated. So not the new score, it's going to grab that global score. So I'm going to take this again. Come on. There we are. Get global score. Okay. Good. So it set the global score to the new score, and now we're going to display the global score there. So we can use this procedure now where's my reset? To fix my reset button here and our start button. And both of those are going to basically be the same. They're going to set the score to 0. So I'm going to come under my procedures, call change score. I'm going to put it in here first, and we're going to set our new score. I'm going to copy this guy, the 0 one, paste it in. So we're going to set our new score to 0. And we're going to do the same thing with the reset. So I'm just going to copy and paste and throw that under a reset. Okay, so for both of those, it's just going to reset our score to 0. So the final thing that we have to do with the score is make sure that we can give the player some sort of score, right? We're just giving them zeros at the moment. We want to give them a point. Well, this game of Pong is, we're not really playing against anybody, so it's more of a game of keep them up, right? So you want to maybe give them a point for every time they successfully hit the ball with the paddle. Okay, and so what we'll do is we'll just grab that procedure, and so when it hits the paddle, so this is it here, right? I'm just going to move this over a little bit, right? We wanted to give it the point. So we're going to basically do the same thing, grab that procedure, and we have to do the same thing that we did before. We have to take the old score and then add 1 to it. So I'm going to grab my math block, the addition one, just throw it on there. And so I'm going to grab the old score. So get the old global score, and we're going to add, I guess I don't have a 1 hanging around here, do I? I'm just going to take that, copy, paste, whoops, okay, well, whatever. Let's move this over, just grab this guy from here, and grab, put 1 in there, and just get rid of this one. Okay, so that should give you a score, scoring system, okay? So what I want you to do is save it and test it out, make sure that it's working, all right? The next thing that we have to do is deal with dying, I guess, right? Deal with having the game over if you touch the bottom there, okay? So we'll deal with that in the next video.